Hey there, comic friends. I'm Travis, and it's the Comic Book Roundtable. Yeah! Except it's just me. It's not round at all. But here I am. I'm going to talk some books. Hopefully everything's going fine. Looks like my microphone is working. The new microphone. We'll find out at some point. Someone's going to hopefully show up at some point and tell me what it is, or I'll find out afterwards. One of the two. Talking books from March 20th. So a week ago now. Huge, ridiculous stack of books I got. I think it's 20 some books, and next week's even worse. It's getting to the point now to where all of my books are showing up on 2 weeks. I got 2 weeks worth of books, where I don't know, 75% of my comics show up on those 2 weeks. But anyway, just me tonight. Hopefully here soon. Get back on some sort of a regular schedule, and I can convince some people to show up and be on the show with me. Otherwise, I may have to start calling it something besides the Comic Roundtable. Anyway, gonna jump right into Marvel as I always do to start out with. It's actually for me reasonable. Heck, I think I may have more Marvel books than I have DC books this week. Anyway, first up is the Spider-Man Life History. This is issue number 1. This is the 60s. So I was kind of hoping it would be more than what it was. It wasn't a bad issue. I'm not a Mark Bagley fan, so I wasn't excited by the art. I've been liking some of what Chip Zdarsky's been doing on some of the stuff that he's been writing. So I was curious about this, curious about moving Spider-Man actually through the decades. Like 1962 or 63, Spider-Man basically exists. We're getting to the late mid-60s. Spider-Man's in college. Flash Thompson is enlisting. We find out why Flash would enlist in the military. Spider-Man spends a certain amount of time trying to decide whether or not, because he's got power, should he enlist? Should he be going to Vietnam and fighting in the war? He runs into Captain America. There's a little brief splash of Captain America at the very end of this issue, which I found curious. I doubt we're touching that anymore. And there's a lot of, it feels heavy-handed 60s jargon in it. The language that Spider-Man uses for money and stuff like that felt somewhat heavy-handed. But I basically didn't exist in the 60s, so maybe people did talk that way more so than what I think that they talk that way. But it wasn't bad. So the next issue is going to be the 70s. We'll see how that goes. I think it's 5 issues. I want to say, but really, it didn't venture very far off from just being a Spider-Man comic. I thought there'd be a little more exploration than what there was. I mean, just some kind of standard internal dialogue worrying of Peter Parker, but just a little more war addressed than otherwise. And I don't know, maybe that's just maybe I just had a different expectation as to what it was going to be. I guess I was thinking this was going to be a different story. It was going to tell something different than what we know, and this really doesn't. Or maybe it stays so heavily true to the character that's why it just feels like a Spider-Man story, as opposed to, I guess I was kind of wondering, maybe they'd have him go, hooked to the bottom side of a gunship and be out, fighting in the war or something, and that would be different. So I don't know. Wasn't bad. I'm going to pick up the rest of it. Like I said, 5 issues or something like that. So, won't be too hard on my pocketbook, and it wasn't a horrible issue. So let's see, let's talk more Spider-Man. Let's talk Miles Morales Spider-Man, issue number 4. So this issue is largely this man, a truant officer, trying to catch Miles because for whatever reason he just thinks that Miles is suspect. Of course, he thinks that Spider-Man's great. The irony, right? And Miles, who normally is a good student, who does not do bad things, does go play hooky to go to the museum. There's a hip hop display there. And of course, he runs into all kinds of stuff along the way that forces him to be Spider-Man along the way. He does kiss the girl in this issue. It's fun. I guess I was hoping there would be deeper meaning behind it, and maybe I shouldn't be looking for that in a Miles Morales comic book, because it is a younger character, and I'm assuming the book is then geared towards a younger audience. I know this writer, Ahmed, can write, stuff that makes you want to cry. So I guess I was hoping that I would get a larger emotional investment in the book. And so far I haven't. It's been fun, but I'm not like, give me some Miles Morales Spider-Man. So I'll read it for a while longer. Looking to see if they're going to venture off into something other than keeping it kind of simple. A book I dearly love from Marvel, West Coast Avengers, issue number 9. I seem to want to think like there's only one more issue of this left, or maybe there's 2 more issues left of it. I don't know. I think the book is funny. It has some exciting things going on. Kelly Thompson does comedy really well, I think. You've got this motley group of West Coast Avengers. They're up against a cult. You find out the cult has vampires in it. Some craziness ensues. It's just got some good stuff and some good laughs in it. And Kate Bishop's mom continues to be awful. So that has been a running theme since what? Young Avengers or something like that. So that's cool to have some of that stuff drag along through it. We get some more superheroes, new superheroes introduced in this, which is cool. I just really enjoy it. I think it's funny. I think the whole thing is humorous. And I think that people missed out. If you weren't reading West Coast Avengers, you missed out. And the book isn't around because enough people are picking up in singles. I'm sure that's what it is. So because I think Kelly Thompson would keep doing it for as long as people wanted to do it. All right, next we have The Immortal Hulk, issue number 15. Absolutely continue to love this book. We get more story in this issue. We get more story told through Doc Samson, right? That's his name, right? I want to say that's his name. I'm not really familiar with these characters. I mean, I know who they are. I know they exist in the in the Marvel universe, but this slice of the Marvel universe, the Hulk world, has never been anything I've read. So a lot of this is kind of adventuring into new stuff for me. We get the aftermath of what happened in the last issue, and we have some interesting conversation between these two about death, about life, about coping mechanisms, because he is a psychiatrist. And I said it's a really, really good book. I really love Joe Bennett's artwork on the thing is just great. His panel layouts are really smart and dynamic and exciting. And yeah, I just continue to be really, really thrilled with the book. It's just really cool. And like I said, continues to surprise me, it being a Hulk book that it's got some really great stuff going on it. This issue is a very green issue in the sense that, Hulk basically talks about the fact that, the death of humanity wouldn't be a bad thing, because look what humans are doing to the world. I mean, if we get rid of a whole lot of humans, some of the stuff that we're doing would resolve itself, kind of a deal. And so it's kind of interesting how, this version of Hulk, his kind of worldview on stuff is pretty intriguing. So by the end of this, it looks like potentially we could get Rick Jones back. I'm gonna have to look up exactly who Rick Jones is, because I'm not terribly familiar with Rick Jones. Where does he fit? Where 100% does he fit in with the the Hulk universe and whatnot? But I love those tilted pages when big fights are going on and whatnot. And I love this kind of gorilla-ish version of the Hulk. And the Alex Ross covers are all just really, really cool. So that is it for my Marvel books this week. 4 books. Marvel type news. I think one of the big things is was it announced this week? Maybe it was last week. Of course, I didn't get to talk about it because I was having mic issues and stuff like that last week. Jonathan Hickman is going to be doing 2 X-Men books. I'm going to be doing House of X and Power of X, I think is the other one. And they're going to be basically bi-weekly comics. So every other week, and they're staggered. So basically there'll be a Hickman X-Men book every week. Not sure what I think of that. I mean, I'm interested in a Hickman X-Men run. I think I'm going to check that out. I would kind of like to get back into the X-Men. So I'd be, so I'm interested in seeing what that is, what that's going to be like and whatnot. So, yeah, I'm gonna take a shot. I just hope it's not an expensive experiment that very quickly I decide I don't like it, because with it coming out as fast as it'll be coming out, and the way I order 2 to 3 months in advance, that I'm going to be saddled with 12 issues. If I hate it right out of the gate, I'll be saddled with 12 issues before I am stopping it. So I'm a bit nervous about that part of it. But yeah, any other Marvel news that I can remember of import? I can't think of anything. So I'm gonna move on to the DC books. So let's talk Aquaman issue number 46. The Kelly Sue DeConnick written, Rocha on art. And I'm gonna pause here for a second because Comics to Comics is in the comments, and I want to see what it is today. Rick Jones was the kid Bruce saved from the gamma bomb went off. Oh, okay. Sweet. Thank you. that helps me out a lot. I mean, I knew that person existed, but I didn't realize that was Rick Jones. So, very intriguing. So all of the Hulks are have resurrection abilities now in the new Hulk. So it's really interesting. Comics to Comics, are you reading the Immortal Hulk? Let me know if you are. Anyway, Aquaman. So last time I talked Aquaman, I was kind of picking on the Aquaman fans who were squawking about this not being an Aquaman book, and they weren't digging it so much. And I kind of like, you just have to look at it as a book, and you let the character do different stuff or whatever. Okay, I'll read this issue and I have to agree. It doesn't seem much like an Aquaman book. It's got Aquaman in it. He doesn't know he's Aquaman, but it has Aquaman in it. It has to do with some sea gods. Does that make it Aquaman-ish? In this issue, he screams telepathically, and it kind of we get to see a brief shot of Atlantis, them going, oh, he's alive. But yeah, I mean, I'll agree. It doesn't. I mean, I've read lots of Aquaman, but it doesn't feel like an Aquaman book. It's I'm liking it. I love the artwork in it and stuff. But it has to do with this whole finding yourself and fighting these deities. It's almost, I don't know if I should make the comparison because that was such a good book, or I enjoyed it so much. It's almost like Brian Azzarello and Cliff Chang's Wonder Woman, in that Aquaman is a player in a larger godly story, kind of a thing. He's a little more in charge of his own whatever, and he's a little more of involved maybe than the Wonder Woman book, but it's along the same sorts of lines. There's this other elements of gods and gods from the past in it, and he's involved, does not know why. Seemingly he is involved just because he happens to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, to kind of get tied up into this this ancient goddess of one of the first gods, the god of salt and the earth, who has decided that it doesn't like how later gods treated her and her now deceased husband. And so she's going to gather up all of her power again, and then destroy the world, and maybe he'll start all over again, or maybe not, kind of a thing. Like I said, the art in it is excellent. But yeah, I mean, I can see as an Aquaman fan where you would feel like you're not getting the story that you expect, because I don't expect dragons in an Aquaman story. I'm enjoying it. It's not, like I said, it's not as rich as what the Wonder Woman book is, which I absolutely loved. But it's interesting. I'm gonna read along, but I just wanted to say that I get what people are saying about it, not necessarily feeling like an Aquaman, an Aquaman story. So yeah, never been a fan of amnesia stories. For me, I'm not against amnesia stories, but there needs to be something special about it. Because I mean, how many, there isn't much room of any place to go other than you can't remember who you are, right? So that doesn't leave you a lot of different type of story to read and whatnot. And Comics to Comics is saying that this has not been Aquaman, which clearly it isn't. If he doesn't know who he is, how can he be Aquaman, right? Especially not only is he not know who he is, he's not even in a setting that would play to Aquaman. Like if he had amnesia and he was still in Atlantis, you would have all those other elements around him that would make it Aquaman. Even if he can't remember that he's Aquaman, there would be all those other elements. He doesn't know who he is, and he happens to be able to breathe in the water, and stuff that has to do with the water is going on around him. But none of that trappings has to do with Aquaman. I don't know that I would go so far as some fans were saying that they really felt like Kelly Sue DeConnick had a story she wanted to tell and is forcing it through Aquaman. I don't know if that's the case though. But yeah, I'm gonna keep reading. I'm gonna read it to see where it goes. Like I said, I do really like the art. Some good comic book art in it. But anyway, that is Aquaman. Wildstorm, issue number 21. We are getting so close. What's after this? That's what I want to know. I'm digging this. I'm enjoying every bit of it. This issue is largely kind of all the different sides gearing up for war. How are the kind of the radical group, the Midnighter and Apollo and Jenny Spark and Jack, what's his name? The guy who's like in tune with cities. I can't remember his last name. Hawkmoon? Is it Hawkmoon? I can't remember. How are they going to at least save the Earth from these two other groups that seem to be gearing up for war? Is what this issue kind of is. It kind of moving those pieces in place for that sort of a thing. I'm really enjoying it, but it just makes you really excited for. I hope there's something after this. I mean, so after Wildstorm is done and 3 more issues, please can we have a new Authority book written by Ellis? Would be sweet. I just remember when this whole Wildstorm stuff first started coming out, they implied there was going to be a lot more books, didn't they? That this was going to be a kind of a world building. There were going to be offshoot books. We had that one Michael Cray book that was an offshoot that I didn't really enjoy, quite frankly. But nothing else. And I thought at some point before we got to the end of this, we would get more stuff. And so far we haven't. But I'm enjoying the comic itself. I'm hoping this, what seemed like they were going to open up an expanded universe of the Wildstorm stuff coming back. I hope we still get to see that, because this has been a lot of fun. So, and lastly, for my DC books this time around is Batman. What is it? 67 all the way down. Beautiful artwork by Lee Weeks. Fornes is doing the coloring now. That's kind of a new thing. It had largely been Elizabeth Brucer had been doing the coloring, but I've seen she's like disappeared. She doesn't do Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. work anymore. And now I've noticed that I haven't seen her do color work anywhere. So I don't know what's up with that. I mean, as far as the dark side of the politic end of comics, I know she's attached to people that us liberal type people don't care for, but I don't know if that has anything to do with it or not, or just kind of a curiosity sake. And in some ways it's unfortunate because she's a super strong colorist. I mean, the artwork in this is fabulous, but I still think it is lacking in color because she does such good color work. Anyway, this is a great story. It's more of the Nightmares storyline, which has basically all been in Batman's head. It seems these are all just horrible things that are happening to happening to him in his head. We don't know if he's being tortured. We don't know what's going on. We don't have the whys of it yet. Just each issue, he's trying to work something out. Last issue was a great issue because it was the Question, Vic Savage, and he had Selena Kyle in like an interrogation room, and he was asking her lots of questions about the wedding. Why didn't she show up? What does this all mean? And that was really, really good stuff. That was a really fun issue. This issue is fabulous too. It's this giant chase scene. There's basically no words in the book. There's some the noise sounds. There's a beep beep at the beginning, which I did not get. I did not get this beep beep at the beginning. Because I'm thinking beep beep like it's like a ticking bomb or something. There's this chase. Every once in a while, you'll get that beep beep sound. And he's chasing him from the rooftops, chasing him down through fire escapes, down through spiraling staircases. So it all matches with the all the way down stuff. Keeps chasing this person. He gets really close, captures him. They punch each other a few times, and he escapes, and he keeps racing down. It goes down. It lands in this bar, and the bar is from the Elmer Fudd crossover Batman book that Lee Weeks and Tom King did. It actually has the Porky Pig character in it, and he's trying to spit out stuff as the guy runs away to help cement Tom King saying that the Elmer Fudd crossover book is actually canon. It's in, which is funny. And at this point, when this happens, it starts to click with me what the beep beep is. So it's not beep beep, it's beep beep, like the Roadrunner. So anyway, so it's the Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner chase down to the bottom. There's a punchline at the end of it. And I really loved it. I mean, to me, it's kind of a classic Joker story. I mean, the Joker's in it. But it doesn't have to do with the Joker. Just the punchline is a perfect Joker kind of a punchline. And I really loved it. I mean, I have, there's only writing, like I said, the last page, literally there's no actual dialogue until we get to the last page. But I still thought it was really great. Looking for the next issue. I don't know. Since the wedding, largely all the Tom King Batman books I have really dug. It's writing on on a different level kind of a thing for me. It just feels like, I continue to say I was one of the biggest haters of Tom King's run on Batman when the book first started. But I have really come around on it, and I'm still excited to see what the next, 33 issues are going to be as he rolls up to basically about, rolls up to the 100 issues. Coming to Comics asking me, where do I think it's going? I don't know. With this part of it, this is all part of the Batman is still breaking down from thinking he was going to have a wonderful life and having it taken away from him, and having it taken away from him in a way that he can't deal with. Most things that happen to Batman, he can figure out how to punch it, or be smarter than it, be the great detective, or pull the thing out of his bat belt that he needs to, the shark repellent, to save himself. And this is something that's happened to him that he hasn't prepared himself for. We see all these ridiculous stories like that ridiculous detective comics run arc we just got done with leading up to Detective Comics 1000. you know, where it's all this story about him basically putting himself in a simulator and torturing himself, you know, to be the better whatever, to get himself out of surviving anything. This is something that he hasn't. I don't think he knows how to prepare for. He's prepared for other stuff, but not this, not this kind of a thing. And this is the kind of story that has, in some sense, been explored before. I mean, clearly, I think in the Grant Morrison run of Batman, where they break him down to the point where he's completely lost his marbles and he's listening to an imaginary radio, and he's got this like ridiculous purple and green costume that he's stitched together, and that he's staggering along. So I mean, it's just a different thing that he can't fight. And it's just kind of him struggling with that, I think, is what some of this is. So, and I like it. I mean, I like that. I like that quandary, because like I said, we're so used to Batman at some point being able to, gets the lock picks at the last second or punches out the Joker or whatever it is he needs to do to figure it out. And in this, he can't quite seem to figure it out. I mean, these arcs have had all kinds of extreme stuff. I mean, him basically going to bat after going nuts on Mr. Freeze, then going to bat in court with jury duty to get him undone and basically make the Batman out to be a bad person. I don't know. I just like all these elements and whatnot. And yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. Comics to Comics is saying that it's almost grieving for a life that he can never have. Fate worse than death. And really, I think that's what it is. I think he just doesn't know how. I mean, that's where I'm seeing it now. That's where I'm seeing it at now, and I'm just curious to see if there's more to it than that. That's how I'm seeing it in my head right now. Anyway, is it's him just trying to figure out how to grapple that. Now, why is he having this nightmare scenario kind of thing? I don't know. I mean, maybe it is just in his head, simply like the detective one was, but this is way more interesting. Or, some villainous element does have a hold of him and he's working it through. But part of me just thinks he's literally having nightmares. This is his subconscious playing with him, and he's trying to work it all out and whatnot. So, yeah. I said, I'm really enjoying it. I think it's good stuff. But I can also see it's not for everybody either. And that's it for my DC books. DC news. Of course, this week was the 80th birthday of Batman. I'm not talking about this week, but of course, the 1000th issue of Detective Comics came out. They've changed the logo. They announced today at WonderCon that they changed the logo of Detective Comics. I should have got a copy of it so I could show you all. It really harkens back to looking like a Warner Brothers cartoon logo. I'm not a really big fan of it. It's the Batman shape, and it says Batman, Detective Comics on it. It looks a lot like this last Batman Brave and the Bold cartoon. It looks a lot like that Warner Brother thing. So I don't know. Not my favorite. I mean, I don't hate it, but it's not great either. Fisher Price logo. Yeah, it does. It does look like a toy logo. I mean, that's really kind of what it does look like. So not super excited about that. Trying to think what other, if I saw anything else at, because WonderCon is going on right now, so I was kind of watching for that. I can't think of anything else. Can't think of any other things right offhand that are. Oh, I heard something, and I had never looked up the bits and pieces on it, but Bendis is going to be writing some other like greatest detective story, and it's going to have like a whole bunch of different detectives in it. Batman, who else in it? It had a whole bunch of greatest detectives. They even put Plastic Man in there, which I thought was curious because I don't know that I would consider him a greatest detective. So I might pick that up. I will say this one thing I do appreciate by and large right now DC's event books haven't totally railroaded or derailed most of the comics. It gave a hiccup to Green Arrow when Heroes in Crisis was going on. It gave a hiccup to Green Arrow with the stuff that happened with Arsenal. And it gave a hiccup to what's going on in The Flash. But I mean, like, entire issues haven't been dedicated to that, really. It hasn't. I mean, there was the fill-in issues of Batman, but those were going to be fill-in issues anyway, so it could have just been whatever. But these other stuff, I mean, they affect the universe. Like, the metal stuff clearly has affected the DC universe, but it didn't force every comic to respond to the events. So I'm cool with event books like this, that if I want to read the event book, I can read the event book. Otherwise, I largely can ignore it. It's not going to force my books to do something else. It puts down stuff so if the creator wants to, if they want to do touchstones on what's going on in the rest of the universe, they can put that stuff in. But it's not a forced crossover sort of a thing. And I appreciate that. Though I do think that the issue this week I got of Batgirl, I think it ties into the last laughing Batman, whatever that shenanigans is. I think it connects to that. It's got Barbara Gordon's brother in it, which I'm always kind of cool about. But now that I'm thinking about it, I think they advertised that issue was going to be some connection to that. So I don't know. I'm a bit nervous about that. But one issue won't be the end of the world, I guess. With as many years as I've had to deal with a lot of that kind of stuff. So at any rate, I think that's it for DC news. I'm going to roll on to my massive pile of independent comics. Take a drink of my beverage. Start out with Aftershocks comic Stronghold. This is issue number 2, written by Phil Hester. Artwork by the wonderful Ryan Kelly. So in this second issue, we get exposed to this entity who seems to be creating havoc, disasters, massacres, wars, famine, all the stuff that biblically you would consider like evil stuff. He has been masterminding. And the reason he's been masterminding this is because he's trying to ferret out our main character, who is this man with all this kind of power, who either could be the next savior of the world or could be, the adversary himself, the Antichrist himself, basically. He, for whatever reason, is wanting to ferret that out. And he figures the best way to ferret that out is to create all this horrible stuff happening. And that's going to force our main character to do the good thing and expose himself. And he has noticed that he's exposed himself, because in the first issue, he saves a drowning child and supposedly drowned. Well, this guy's been monitoring all this stuff, and he's suspicious that that's something. So he is going to America to find out what's going on. He's going to cause a massive massacre in America in this baseball stadium. But the guy isn't all evil. There's this sick, crying child that's a child of one of his staff members of where he's living at. And you see him like completely mummify the kid. And you're thinking, oh my God, the kid's crying and you're killing it. But then after he's done having the conversation, he unfurls his hands and the baby is perfectly healthy and, has, beautiful, wonderful health at that point, kind of a thing. Meanwhile, our godly person is his entire world's been rocked, and he's just wandering from point to point, getting on bus slides and riding all over the place, wandering aimlessly, while the Stronghold, this kind of religious group of people who have made it their life's work to keep this godlike man's world as neutral as possible. So he's not stopping they're not stopping him from doing, they're stopping him from doing good work or bad work. They want him to stay neutral. They figure that's the way everyone's going to, everyone's going to stay safe. So they're trying to keep him neutral. And then there's this one woman who set him off because she wasn't 100% sure whether he was real or not. Just a lot of really interesting stuff going on. So I'm curious to see where it's all going to go to now, these different parts that are moving. Is this guy forced to be a force of good? And why does he want him exposed? What does he plan to do with him? Gonna find out. But anyway, wonderful artwork by Ryan Kelly. Interesting story. Let's see where that goes. Oh, this was a downer of a book to read. BPRD, The Devil You Know, issue number 14. The next issue is the final issue. There will be no more current running BPRD supposedly after this. The only BPRD books that we're going to get is stuff set in the past. In this issue, Hellboy fights Rasputin. It's the final battle. Rasputin has come back. Rasputin's probably 3 or 4 stories tall. Hellboy goes full Hellboy, and they brawl it out. People are dying left and right. Characters that we've had around for a long time are dying left and right in this. I just don't know what's going to be left. Large portions of humanity are racing to get underground to escape whatever is going to be happening on the surface. I just don't know. I love these characters. I love the world. I was prepared the first time that they were going to wrap up BPRD. I'm not too excited about it this time, and I think it's tainting my opinion of the other Magnolia Universe books. And maybe I'll get past that. Like I said, I don't think that they're worse written or drawn than anything in the past. I don't know. It emotionally is playing with me, I guess, in a way that does not make me excited for it to end. I wanted it to be something else, I guess, or I don't know. But we'll see how it lands. One more issue. American Carnage, issue number 5. I really like this book, but it is a downer of a book also. Set in the current American climate with politics and racism and well, some cultural warfare too, as far as who gets forced to do what sort of a thing, the choices that are made. This guy who's kind of an undercover, not working for the FBI anymore, but working for the FBI. How far is he going to slip into the depths of this political campaign and this backdoor white supremacy evil that is rolling along in this book. And some of the other emotional tugging that's going on in it. Some of the people, are they just in a bad place and don't know how to escape it? Or is their base nature bad too? You just don't know. Wonderfully well written. Really like the artwork on it. Brian Hill written, Leonardo Fernandez, Dean White on colors. Good book. But boy, it is not a cheery book. It is a bummer of a book to read, as far as, if you live in America anyway, the current climate is a bummer. And this just matches it up really well. I mean, clearly some extremities, going on in it, because it is fiction. But still, definitely a bummer of sorts. A book I dearly love this time around. Number 3 of Criminal. Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips book. Still not as well colored as what they used to be in the past. I'll keep harping on that. But this is the ending part of the story about our comic book artist. And it was just a lot of fun to read. I know that it's not representative of real people in any way. Ed Brubaker makes that very clear at the end of it in both issues that, hey, this is a work of fiction. Characters are made up. Some of the names that are dropped are real names. Some of the situations that are in this happened in one sense or another, supposedly throughout the comic world. But as a comic book geek, this was just fun. All the winks and nods and just the kind of the lore of what this guy used to be in these pages that he was hunting, and the kind of twist that's at the end of this story, at the end of this issue, I thought was a lot of fun too. But just like I said, as a comic book geek, of somebody who pays attention and kind of love the art and love the work of these old guys that now we kind of hear stories about them, like some of the crazy stuff that Steranko did and Gil Kane did and Jack Kirby did, and all these, we get all these stories. Well, that's kind of, they all kind of get folded into these 2 issues in some sense or another. And it was just a lot of fun to read that. So it was a kick for that. And even if you're not interested in all that, still a good story, like I said, with a fun twist at the end of it. I'm really gonna like this criminal thing because it's gonna be these little short stories about criminal activity. So I think that's gonna be a lot of fun. A book I super love, Lucifer, issue number 6. This is ends up being the end of an arc. By the end of this, it looks like we get our traditional Lucifer back, not the mad poet here with the big beard and long hair. We get the slim and suave Lucifer with his 2 fun licks that make him look like he has horns. And we deal with our detective who had the brain tumor. All that kind of comes to a header in this issue. Intriguingly, some of this has to do with Lucifer and lost love and just a lot of things that I like in a story. Anyway, brilliant artwork by the Furukawa brothers with colors by Dave McCraig. I love the color palette of this book. It's a great covers, but I love the color palette. These oranges and reds and browns. It's just these warm, rich colors. And then these striking grays and blues and greens that will pop up in the book. Get this whole flashback telling us about this woman that Lucifer had met, and then they have a child, and kind of what happened with that child that leads us into the story we have going on right now. But yeah, I just, like I said, I really dig this book. I dig the art. It's another book that feels like, to some degree, it has an extra level of literature to it that I really appreciate. But yeah, just good stuff. My favorite of the Sandman universe stuff followed right behind with the Dreaming. The Dreaming is excellent too. The Dreaming feels like it's just an extension of the Sandman comics. This one maybe less so. I don't think it really hits really close at this point to the old Lucifer book or anything, but in and of itself, it is a good book for its own, sort of a thing. So Evolution. So this is issue number 15. All the different groups we have going on are starting to meet with each other. Their paths are starting to clash. Still not sure 100% what's going on as far as, are people really being altered? Is it evolution? Has somebody been exposed to something? About the time we felt like we were starting to get answers, it was starting to make sense a few issues ago. Now I'm not 100% sure that the crazy guy who's been killing people and been seeing all the people evolving and sending all this stuff to the CDC and that sort of stuff. Now I'm going back to thinking that maybe he's crazy again. Not that he's not seeing stuff, but what he thinks it is not what it is. So that kind of turning it on its air makes me excited for it again, just because it's like, okay, I thought I knew the path this was going down. Now I'm not 100% sure I know what path it's going down again. I think we have four or five more issues, and then it's done. We're setting up the last arc. Either it's just started or it's just getting ready to start. So I'm excited to see where that all goes. I continue to be impressed with the fact that this book has 3 writers on it. You would not know that it has 3 writers on it at this point. Kind of writing separate stories that kind of weave together. Of course, having the Furukawa art with Boyd on colors on it, makes it really easy as far as that goes. But still, smart book. I'm like I said, I'm really enjoying it, and I'm curious to see where it goes to. And it has its own look. Like I said, I dig it for having its own look. I mean, here, this is a girlfriend, and the girlfriend is transcending. That is some awesome looking artwork there. But no, I really dig it. I dig it a lot. It's just got some really good elements. But like this whole cult thing is something from the 60s that they started out this group of guys started out doing this whole craziness because they basically wanted to get high cheaper and pick up girls easier. And then it became, a place to like hide their extra money. They could launder their money through it and dodge taxes through it and that sort of stuff. So I'm just, I don't know. It's like I said, it's going to be real curious to see how the thing plays at this point. Cause it's eerie and creepy and really cool, kind of a strange body horror kind of a deal and whatnot. So Cinema Comica is saying they really enjoyed the mad scientist arc of the story. Yeah, he is nuts, right? But I mean, so for a while, it really feels like that he is the person that sees it and he knows what's going on. He understands it all. This issue, though, makes me now start to kind of go, I don't know. He may still not know what's going on and still, I mean, he's on a killing spree. I mean, he's doing it in the name of science, but he is like, cutting people up with radial arm saws and just all kinds of, crazy things in his process. And he's dragging his kid along with him. And I'm sure the kid's going to start having nightmares. Because in this issue, the kid starts digging through some of the boxes that the guy has sitting around, and those boxes are full of organs and stuff like that. So, yeah. Let's see. What's next? Invisible Kingdom. This is a book I was super excited about. This is a Berger book coming out from Dark Horse. Gila Wilson writing and Christian Ward on art. Basically, any book that Christian Ward is going to be on, I pick it up. I don't care what it's about. I'm going to pick it up, check out the art because the art is brilliant. His colors are just absolutely wonderful. So in this first issue, we get the equivalent of some nuns. They're actually called nuns, but it's nun, N-O-N-E. We are in a solar system that it seems to have 4 planets around a sun. It's sci-fi, but there isn't light travel, so they can't fly across the universe in the blink of an eye. But they navigate between these 4 planets. But there's this nun. She goes to this nunnery, the Invisible Kingdom, where she gets hired on as a bookkeeper. There, where she's being a bookkeeper, she finds some stuff that maybe she shouldn't find. Our other main character is a captain of a freighter ship, and they've crashed on a moon. And while they're repairing, he's going over a manifest, and he finds out that the manifest doesn't have anything in the boxes that he's transporting, and that it's moving this money. And maybe the monastery and this is all kind of a connection to each other. There's this company, I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically the equivalent of Amazon on a solar system level, Amazon, and somebody is pushing money, laundering money through this system. So it'll be really curious. So here we are crashing on a moon here, and then this is a woman walking up to go to this heavenly monastery here. But the colors are gorgeous. This is them walking in space, right? These are their space helmets. This kind of, it's like some sort of a bubble of oxygen that they kind of drag along around their head. It's cool. Instead of having official, helmets to seal on, it's just this kind of blob of oxygen that floats around and whatnot. But the art is gorgeous in it. It's some good stuff. It's some beautiful stuff. Christian Ward does space really, really well. So excited to see what goes on in it, because it's got some cool stuff and some interesting ideas, some potentially interesting ideas. To see where they explore whatnot. So reading what Sergeant America has to say, and he's saying that I think I was expecting too much from Invisible Kingdom. Good, but not Black Bolt good, in my opinion. Yes, but I think some of that has to do with the fact is with the Black Bolt, they could just hit the ground running because we already know Black Bolt, and we know where, what we're going to do initially. And then we kind of explore whatever's there. Whereas this kind of has to do, I think more just general kind of ground building first, that to build us something for us to then explore a story within, kind of a thing. And Black Bolt might have been sharper colored, right? Maybe it was. Maybe it was. Yeah, you didn't feel the hook of this book. Yeah, it wasn't really introduced other than the mystery of the money. And if you're not interested in the mystery of the money or just what the world's about, you're right. There isn't a big hook. There isn't a big hook in this issue for sure. I'm curious about all the elements though. So, and I like sci-fi, so I'll be around to read it. But I definitely get what you're saying. There wasn't a big heavy hook in it. You're right. Bitterroot issue number 5, which I believe has been picked up for potentially a TV show or a movie. Good stuff. This is the end of an arc. For me, it's largely about Sanford Green's artwork. His artwork is just super cool in it. It's big, it's bombastic. The colors, the purples, the greens, the yellows. I dig all of that. This issue, there's a giant fight in Harlem. They're fighting this big monstrous guy. They, end up killing a loved one of his at one point in it, which brings him back for more heavy, bloody murder in it. And then at the end of it, we get a surprise return of some characters. Well, one of them is not much of a surprise because we were told she was dead, and now she's not. But some great, awesome fighting ensues, and it sets up what hopefully will be the next arc at the end of the book. But like I said, it's got some absolutely great, huge, bombastic fight scenes with just lots of crazy stuff going on. Them brawling with these demon kite characters in Harlem in the, I want to say 30s. I don't think it's quite the 40s yet. I can't remember. Somewhere around in there. But good stuff. Just really fun. Like I said, dig it for the art, if nothing else. And I like this kind of a monster romp. I like the kind of quasi Call of Cthulhu monsters and that sort of thing. So it works on a number of levels for me for the kind of vibe and whatnot. So yeah. Let's see another new number 1. This is Aftershocks Comics. Dark Red. Cover there is Chip cleaning up the aisles of the convenience store that he works in. You look at the cover, it tells you what era we're in there. This is covered in Make America Great hats and all of that sort of stuff. And a bunch of bumper stickers, the Make America Great bumper stickers, something about fake news and that sort of thing in it. So it's Tim Seeley, written, Corinne Howell, drawn. It is a vampire story of sorts. So they're in North Dakota. Chip lives in North Dakota, some little town, Something Falls, North Dakota. He is quite happy there, cleaning up after truckers and that sort of thing, and living a very quiet and simple country life. He has a friend that he has a deal with. She has a blood disease where she produces too much blood. So, of course, that's perfect for a vampire. So he feeds off of her, which saves her tons of money because she'd have to go to the hospital quite often to have the excess blood removed from her. So it's a win-win for both of them as far as that goes. She would like him to turn her into a vampire and them to go to the big city. He's like, yuck, the big city sucks. I don't want to go there. These simple people aren't that bad. It's a better kind of life. And then he gets jumped by some vampires that have moved into his territory and are going to drink his people and that sort of stuff. So he gets into a brawl with them. And by the end of it, there's some, beautiful white paled stereotypical goddess like vampire has shown up and maybe implies that he's the what's going to rescue the vampires. But it starts out with him getting home late from work because he has to work late, cleaning up some trucker's puke. off the floor. And of course, he gets burnt up and has to rush and hide inside of his house to heal and whatnot. So I don't know. It was okay. Nothing super special about it, I didn't think. I'll give it a few issues to see what. And here's the cover for the next issue. So I'll give it a few issues to see what Tim Seeley is wanting to say. You know, does he have some interesting exploration of something? Are we exploring, you know, Middle America, or not? Or is it just a vampire story with some hicks, which really isn't that far removed from like True Blood in some sense, right? So, but yeah, it was okay, but not anything that I'm super excited about. And I hear it's sold out. People are struggling to find issues of it. I don't know. I must not have a very big print run, but some people really loved it. It was okay for me. So Lazarus is back. This is Lazarus issue, Risen issue number 1. It's been gone for, I don't know, 8 months or something like that. It is now in a quarterly format. So it's got this square bound size to it. It is $8, $7.99. It is 44 pages, give or take, of comic with about 20 some pages of back issue in it. I am a fan of the idea of a quarterly comic. I'm not a fan of square bound books anymore. I used to think, ooh, cool, prestige format. Yay. No, not really, because now I can't open it up and lay it flat like a floppy, because if I do, it'll break the binding, and of course it'll fall apart. So I can't do that. So that's kind of a bummer in that sense. The back of this has some back matter that's written by Greg Rucka, stuff that was always in the comic when it was a monthly issue. It also has some role-playing stuff in it, which I do not care about one bit. It has a prose story in the back of it, which was all right. So some pros and cons to this format that they've gone to. But man, I love having the book back. It feels like it's been forever. There's a 2-year jump between the last issue of this and floppies and what is happening here. So a lot of ground to cover as the war continues. The fact that 2 years have gone by and basically the war hasn't moved an inch, though, is curious. Just some pretty wild stuff happens at the end of this issue. Forever continues to be cool. We get some more exposure to Forever's sister in this issue. We get to see some emotional fracturing of some of the Carlisle family. But yeah, really, really enjoyed it. If you've always liked Lazarus, there's no reason why you would not like this too. It is excellent stuff. Just not 100% sure. Did I get enough in this to hold me over for another quarter until the next one comes out? I'll keep getting it because I love the story as a whole. I'm just beginning to wonder if it's going to stay in this format, is it going to be more advantageous to me to wait for trades? And are there going to be trades? There may not be if it comes out in this kind of quarterly quasi square bound thing. But I don't know, for $4 more, right? $12. Is that what a besides the first trade, a lot of these books after that, are they like $12, $15? You get 5 or 6 issues, and then this for $8, you're getting 2. I don't know from an economical standpoint if that's the right move or not. I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I like to support the book at its roots, but I won't quit getting it. I love the characters too much, but I don't know that this is the ideal format for me with what I'm getting versus Headlopper, which is a quarterly book. It's 60 pages, I believe, or 50 some pages, I believe, for the same price. And it's pure comics all the way through. I feel like that format for Headlopper works really well. I don't know how long I would read this book if it had started out in this quarterly in this format with 20 some pages of back matter that is somewhat interesting, but there's parts of it that I absolutely will get no use out of whatsoever. I don't know. I don't know if I would have gotten it in the first place. I probably would have picked up at least an issue because it's Greg Rucka, but I don't know if I would have stuck with it. But if it works for them to get what I want out of it, maybe that's an okay thing. So I don't know. All righty. High Level issue number 2. So 13 is forcibly agreed to run this kid to High Level. She is supposedly some secret weapon of sorts that she can open up vaults that no one has been able to open up for centuries, and all of this kind of stuff and whatnot. I don't know. Not really that interested in the story. 13 is kind of an ass all the way through it to the kid. Tries to shut the kid off on somebody else. The city they live in gets attacked, gets burnt to the ground, basically. So now they're teaming up, whether they wanted to or not. I don't know. It was okay-ish. Still not really excited about it. I still don't like the way some of the design of the book is. I'm not a fan of these kinds of pages. This traveling page and then a bunch of exposition. You know, it's dialogue boxes with. It's not even talking heads. I mean, normally we complain, right, if it was a bunch of panels of talking heads. So this is the equivalent of talking heads without drawing all the talking heads. So I'm not even really getting a face, an emotional face to go with my talking head. And one of the talking heads here doesn't even talk, at least not at this point in the comic book. So I don't know. Like I said, not a real big fan of the book. I'm just not super excited about not getting a lot out of it at this point. I keep getting it because I get a deal on all my Vertigo books, 50% off. So cheaper to get it than to not get it and have to pay a higher price for all the other Vertigo books that I do pick up. So let's see. Monstrous issue number 21. So we get exposed to Half-Wolf's father in this issue. We get some more history. We start to see we get exposed to another army. So there's like a 4th or 5th army of superpowers ready to take it to everybody else, to control the world and whatnot. And so where's our main character going to play in this thing? Not sure. Love the artwork in it. Continue to think the artwork is brilliant in it. I like the story. It's an interesting story. But in singles, it is a slow crawl. I mean, in this issue, I think maybe a half hour passes in this issue as far as time goes. So it's slow moving as far as that goes. Like I said, I really enjoy it. But I'm sure this thing reads gorgeously in trades. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. I'll keep picking it up. I like my singles because I can lay it out and look at the art easily and whatnot. But good stuff. And finally is the final issue so far of Edgar Allan Poe's Snifter of Terror, issue number 6. All of the Ahoy Comics books have ended, and they're going to have like a second season. So some new books, and I think some books returning. This book might return later on. But this was a lot of fun. This story down here, the Frankencherry story, which is written by Mark Russell with artwork by Pete Subjenberg. You know, we all know Mark Russell is kind of known now for taking like Hanna-Barbera characters and kind of flipping the script on them to some degree, sharpening them up, making them smart, the Flintstones, Snagglepuss, stuff like that. So this Frankenberry, the entire thing is scripted off of Serial. I mean, there's Lucky Charms character in it. There's the Toucan, the Fruit Loops Toucan. It's hilarious, but it's still a horror story because he ends up being Frankenstein. But they use all these names that are just super close to being the freaking breakfast cereals. I don't know. I just thought it was a lot of fun. The William Wilson Incorporated Pete Milligan book story in here was lots of fun too. Kind of I don't know how it's horror necessarily or Edgar Allan Poe-ish. In that story, a guy who's really rich, he's got a mistress, he has a wife, he's struggling to keep it all juggled. A guy suggests he goes to this William Wilson Incorporated place where he gets a clone of himself made, and he lets the clone, deal with his wife while he has the mistress so he can run this great life and whatnot. And we find out towards the end of it that it's actually the wives and the mistresses have their own clones. So the clones are sleeping and living lives with the clones while the wife and mistress are off having a love affair. And the husband is in the bar talking to his other friends about how he is so smart. He has this whole thing going on when really he is playing himself. So that's kind of fun. And then there's a few short stories in here, which are amusing too. This is kind of a fun, bizarre anthology. And the covers always crack me up on these books. So there's the stretch shot of it. So at any rate, some fun stuff. And I don't really have any independent news. And yes, Mike, you did miss the Marvel part. It was at the beginning of the show because that's when I do it. You came in on the DC part. That's it this week. Hopefully I will twist some arms and get some people back to talk comics with me on here. So it's not a round table of one. Next week is, like I said, is huge for me. I've got 25 issues. I doubt I'll actually talk about all 25 issues. Unless like Damien is on and he got a lot of books that week, then maybe I'll talk all 25 issues. Because he picks up a lot of the same books that I do. Otherwise, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it as always. Thanks for watching it later on, if you choose to watch it later on. And until next week or next time, have a great night, everybody.